Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them so you can build it yourself. Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Collin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Jay Mount. He's the head of our consulting practice here at Predictable Revenue. And we're going to talk about 7 Apollo features you're probably not using. Jay, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Collin. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. Happy to have you. Always. I think this is a 3rd appearance on the show.
2nd or 3rd.
I thought we had one just before, either when you first joined PR. No?
Not that round. Yeah. So I think it might be the 2nd, actually.
2nd. Okay. So if you're curious, you want to go back in time and see Collin with a lot less skill and ability and a worse mic, you could go check that out. I wouldn't recommend it though. I guess I should comment to the audience. This isn't a Apollo sponsored whatever. We just happen to use Apollo, and we do a lot of consulting work around Apollo. And we find that anytime we dig into somebody's instance and they're saying, oh, Apollo isn't working, they're using it in a very basic way, or they're using it like a spam cannon. And they're just went, okay, let's grab all the data over here and let's shove it into one sequence and then just hit go with as many emails as possible. And while you can do that in Apollo, I don't think you should. And Jay and I were kind of ranting and rambling about, all the things that people don't know about Apollo. And we thought, hey, why don't we stop and we'll turn the mics on and just kind of record the conversation. And so we're going to talk about some of Jay's favorite things. I'll interject and waste some of your time as well. But Jay, what is the first thing that you wish people understood about Apollo that they typically miss?
I think it's so easy to go from finding contacts or accounts to sequence that we tend to just use the same filters over and over again. And when everyone's doing the same thing in this kind of work, it stops being as effective. And so with how easy they make it to do that, spending a little bit of extra time on some of the additional filters that are in the search panel really can make a huge difference. You'll go after a different list in a different order. You can personalize better. And so that's definitely something that I look at first, is how can I make this more nuanced as I sort of tweak the search beyond just titles, beyond just industry and the basic stuff.
This is going to come off as ass kissing to Apollo. So I apologize. But I'm a fan of the tool. The thing that I really liked about it was the data and the sequence are together, and not just that they're in the same place and it's easy. It is great that I don't have to download, upload everything, but it's the integration of the two that I can stack. I've got my entire database that I'd want to reach out to, and I can stack that with like triggers and workflows, and I can mix those two together. I think one of the underrated features of Apollo is that those just work together. Whereas if you want to use as outreach and a Zoom info, they absolutely work together, but you have to make them work together in a central repository, or there's an integration step. And, when you're getting two tools to work together, from my experience, we had both of those two tools previously. You can, even with Salesforce, it just never works quite as well as Apollo. So that's enough kind of brown nosing on my part. I'll try and hold myself back. Again, not getting paid, just like the tool, and like not having to pay for Salesforce, like not having to pay for all these extra things. So I care about that.
It opens up some pretty powerful combinations for sure.
Talk to me about how you use the search panel.
Yeah. So, I usually start company first and then person. Doesn't really matter what the order is, but that's just how my brain works, is working downwards like that.
I'm the same way. I can't do it another way unless I'm running a very specific play of like they have to have 7 right-handed sales development reps, and in which case I'll start with like the company or the contact first. I'm 99% of the time company first.
First thing I usually do when I'm doing that is look at account location, industry, and potentially just looking at employee size. But there's some cool additional filters in there that let you differentiate, because everyone's going for filters like that. And so inside industry, what I found a lot of value in is spending some time including and excluding keywords. So going in there, turning on the additional keywords in the include, so like social media descriptions and SEO, just gives you a little bit more data. And then I add a keyword, look on the right to see how my results are changing. I scan them. I see a keyword I don't like in the list. I exclude that, and I go back and forth through a little bit. It takes a little bit of time, but you can really dial in a list so much deeper than those industry filters with that play. You mentioned 7 left-handed SDRs. They did at some point slip in a little feature with job titles at the account level. So you can say, does this company have SDRs? Does this company have, variations of the SDR title, and grab those ones? So that opens up some interesting possibilities too.
One thing that we were doing when we were sharing screens earlier, and you had the filters up. I think there's a couple boxes that you clicked. I think it was SEO and it was SEO description and something else that you enabled. Talk to me about what those are and what they add into the kind of keyword selection.
Yeah, so it looks like it pulls in some extra data for the keywords to work with. So they have a few places that they're pulling keywords in from. Um, and so
Social
really
media.
what social media and SEO. So instead of just getting data off of the other downstream data sources, I'm guessing, descriptions from databases that they've purchased, we're also pulling in their website's SEO description and some of the other social media tags or social media page descriptions that are out there. LinkedIn page, stuff like that. Looks like it's in there.
So generally, this is probably going to be very similar, but sometimes there's kind of niche things that you're looking for where you'll find them in the SEO tags or in the social media tags. And I think the way I think about it is like the general data is probably pulled from like their LinkedIn description. It might not be, but that's loosely what it's going to be. Somebody in marketing wrote this. When you look at the SEO tags, you'll find different tags because somebody in SEO wrote that and somebody in social media wrote the other ones. And so if you're not finding the precise keyword, enabling those things can let you go a little bit farther. And I don't think I've seen I haven't tried the social media one. I think that was the new one, but I've used the SEO tags before. And I do find it adds just another layer of like granularity for you to go into.
Definitely. Gives you that search engine result snippet. So you can use that right inside Apollo, which is pretty nice.
Talk to me about keywords management level, because this is I think a pretty obvious one, but it's easy to miss if you're not looking for it.
Yeah. So what I've been doing lately, instead of trying to put in every permutation and combination of a title, is especially like early on, using certain distinct keywords and combining that with management level to bring in the management level. So what that gives me is some more flexibility to see what kinds of different title variations there are and see what it brings in. And so instead of going after like manager of marketing as the keywords, I would put marketing as the keyword only. And then I would pick manager level in the management level field. And that will show me all the different variations of marketing managers that are out there, giving me the ability to then pick and choose the ones I want and kind of dial in my search myself rather than just me guessing what the titles are and then only seeing the stuff I've guessed. So I find that super powerful when I'm hunting for certain titles.
Nice. And the same applies from earlier. You can do include, exclude with the keywords here, right? So if you're going like marketing, you could specifically exclude anybody who's doing direct mail, like direct mail marketing manager, if you're going specifically after digital, or the inverse, if you're going after direct mail marketing managers.
Exactly the same as company keywords, which is really powerful.
Yeah, that's super neat. Anything else on keyword management level?
There is functional data, which I sometimes try. My move there is like to see how it works. It's department level information. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes it doesn't. So it's not my starting point, but it is something you could take a look at if you're just inside a finance team or just inside a sales team, for example.
I find if I'm new to an industry and I don't understand all the potential job titles and haven't done the research, I'll just kind of click on the functional area and management level, and I'll look at what all the different permutations are. It's not the best way to do it, but it is one of those like quick hacks. If you're there, you're like, let's just see.
Definitely.
Love it. We kind of talked about kind of while we're on companies, another, one way we talked about at the top is have sales development reps or has a marketing team. Is it a job function or is it a specific job title?
So there is two different ways to do it. You can do job titles specifically and go after job titles. You can also look for headcount inside a certain team. So there's headcount growth, and you can select a department for that. So you can look at headcount growth for sales. You can look at headcount growth for any other sort of functional department you're looking for as well.
That's fantastic. I love the headcount growth signal. Do they have just raw headcount, or is it a strictly growth?
There's both. I was just looking for the right keyword. So there's headcount growth for growth, and then there is number sign employees by department, which is the other one where you can dial in mins and maxes for specific functional areas.
Love that. I spent so much time going to LinkedIn Sales Nav just to get that headcount growth filter and then scraping it or exporting it. Back in the day when you had to do it manually in Clay and going through and click, 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 click. Man, that was spent probably weeks doing that, like linear time weeks. It was, I didn't enjoy that. So I'm glad that that's a filter that exists now because it is a great ability to target, if you're looking at, when we're looking at companies and say we're looking at the consulting side of things, looking for companies that are growing with that department, like, you've added, 8 more SDRs. That's an indication that there is potentially growing pains here. right? This filter in and of itself doesn't mean they're a great customer. But when you stack on 5 or 6 things that make them 5% more likely, well, now you're starting to get into 30%, 40% more likely. 20, I guess 25% or 30% more likely if I want to do the correct math here. But this is a sales business podcast. Don't check my math. How dare you? So I like that. I like the ability to do the searches and the account or the job title growth. That's really handy that it's in Apollo now.
Definitely. Lets you do some neat things too. Like sometimes people use the co-founder title and you can search for that. Sometimes they don't. So founder is actually one of the departments that Apollo has ready for you. So you can say min 2 founders in the founder department and then find all those companies with co-founders. So there's lots of little small things in there if you spend a little bit of time thinking about how to put in the filters.
I suspect normal people aren't this way, but it is Apollo. I find is one of those tools that I could blink and like 4 hours went by. And I just spent way too much time designing this one little niche thing that's probably not going to generate like enough value to justify the 4 hours I just spent. But I did a cool thing and I'm going to tell my wife about it and she's going to go, I don't care. She won't say the second part out loud, but she'll go, oh, wow, that's nice. And I'm like, I know you don't care, but I just had to tell somebody because I did a cool thing, you know?
You heard the inside voice as well, like it was outside.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've been married a while. I know. Even as I'm saying it, I'm like, nobody should care about what I'm about to say, but I still got to say it anyway. Everybody listening on the podcast is going, yeah, just move on. Talk to me about activity filters.
Yeah. So I've been using those a lot more lately to make changes to campaigns or to set up recycle or nurture plays within the system. So one of the things that it's useful for is picking up everyone who's in a sequence who has or hasn't engaged yet. If you wanted to modify who's in your sequence or perhaps pull them out to treat them differently. So you can look for things like people who haven't opened, people who haven't replied, those kind of triggers with the activity filters. The other one that's useful is for everyone who's done sequences, who's not going to show up in your active sequence filter, you can just look for everyone who's been sent an email before or sent X number of emails before, who has been sent emails but hasn't replied, who has been sent emails but has opened, who has clicked. All of those filters are available. So it's really easy to go back and say, hey, those people were on ICP. They are potentially valuable leads. It probably just wasn't the right time last time. Let's pull that list again without having to rethink it all, just by targeting past activity. And then let's start working that list again with a new set of sequences.
Man, this was back when I was building Carb, this was the hardest thing to get users to understand and think about. Like I remember one of our engineers, I think it was Preston, our CTO, maybe it was Francesco, asked me like, what happens to the list once the sequence finishes? And I was like, I don't know. And I didn't have a good answer. Eventually we did build kind of like a version of this Apollo UI, but we didn't have all of the data in there back in the day. But once you've run through a sequence, like you put so much effort into designing a sequence, into designing the filters and into picking the list, into getting just the right people on there. And then you go and run and like maybe your messaging was good, maybe your timing was good, maybe it wasn't, right? Now that list is just dead, right? Like you're not going to do anything with that list or those contacts. You might scoop them up into another campaign, but I love that you can have a method of pushing them into another campaign or automating this. So talk to me a little bit about how you've used that in the past.
Yeah, definitely. You can do these things by hand as you're building them out, but you can also use them in conjunction with workflows, which used to be called plays, but is now called workflows in the tool. And so that is a great way to automate some of this. So you're not having to remember to go get that list, remember to move it over to the other sequence. You can just set up a workflow that runs, on a trigger as it happens, like event-based, as someone opens, as someone clicks, or you can trigger those on a time basis. Once a day, once a week, so on and so forth. And so that's helpful in a few ways. Like one, when someone finishes a sequence, you can grab them, stick them in a list, and then you can go and you can pull 10 people from that list every day and stick them into your re-engagement sequence. And what that gives you the ability to do is also manage overwhelm for your sales team. You don't want to pile 10,000 contacts in at once and have those all flow back in. And so you can, really take control by using lists and sequences together to slowly move people in between different things. One of the newest things that I haven't used yet that I did see is you can actually pause now just in a workflow. So you don't even need that extra step I was doing of the list building and then another play to go get them. You can actually just use a workflow now to pause for X number of time and then do the next thing that you want it to do directly. So they're always making it easier and easier every time I look inside.
When we were talking about this last time, we talked a little bit about engagement triggers. Can you tell me about how you use them to make the account feel alive?
Yeah, definitely. So when things are happening in a sequence, it can feel kind of like that's just in the background. As a sales rep, at least that was my experience, going through it. It's if it's all automated, what am I doing? That's just kind of happening and then I'm doing my thing. And so what I've always hunted for myself is like, where are those moments where I can get involved or in reverse where I can engage my sales reps? And so when you have a sequence running, other stuff is happening, not just the sequence, right? And so you can use workflows to grab those events as they happen. It could be things like, I already shared one, but simple stuff like the bounce. A bounce happens. Now let's engage the rep to go find another contact. That's an easy one. But you can also look for, hey, they hit a hiring growth threshold at this account. They've now, posted a new job. They've opened a new office location. So all like the signals and intent data is right there. And with a workflow, you can say, look for everyone in a sequence and then look for net new people who had one of these signals or triggers occur. And you can use that to fire a task for the rep.
That's cool.
And a task might sound boring, but really what you're doing with that is you're letting the rep know something interesting happened. Hey, did you know that your account, just broke a new growth threshold or just opened a new location? Might be a good time to reach out. So you're giving them those kind of prompts.
Totally. And I think this is a nice way of balancing like automation. I mean, isn't that what we're trying to do here? Right? Like we're trying to find alpha compared to our competitors. When all of our competitors had access to Apollo, the person that gets the better result out of the tool is going to be the person that knows how to use it better and can find these little moments, these little plays, these little triggers to do, a little bit better than your competitors. Don't you want to beat them? Don't you want to crush them as opposed to just do the same that everybody else is doing?
Yeah. A few extra hours of time up front on this stuff. When you're going to use it for, 300 hours after, it's going to make a big deal and it's going to give you a lot of leverage on those 300 hours.
It's almost like investing in like your employee happiness, because you can invest a lot of your brain in finding these plays and you'll make their job a lot easier. And yes, there will be a revenue outcome for you, but I could tell you as somebody who's made thousands upon thousands of cold calls, there's nothing worse than calling a crappy list where 1 in 14 people you call are going to be dead. Like maybe people aren't calling those lists quite anymore, but back when I was a kid making my dials, I wasn't using a rotary, but I did have to dial by hand and I did have a phone book and it was the BC Book of Businesses with the names of the owners. And I would go through and cross them off and take pictures of the funny names. That frequently happened. And I think all of these signals, these filters, all this to get the SDR right to that, like to make their job easier, to make it more effective. So they know when they sit down for a call block that they're way more likely to be calling into people that A, want to hear them and B, they're going to connect with. And I think that's just an amazing thing that you can do with any tool. I want to get into maybe kind of double clicking on kind of some of the like pulling people out of workflows, putting people into workflows kind of side of things. Where should we start there?
I typically set up 2 kinds of workflows for those cases. And maybe this is overkill, so maybe it's just me, but I use event-based ones and I use time-based ones just to make sure I have everything covered. And so
what is an event-based one? What is a time-based one?
So in this case, events are things like added to a sequence, finish a sequence, open clicked. So for this type of keeping my sequences clean, I'm using event-based for when I add someone, just to get a double check. Apollo, I know some of this happens automatically, but I just like knowing that it's there. And so when add to sequence, make sure this is a verified email, especially if I've used an external verifier and I've loaded a custom field in with that. Check both of those just to make sure it's verified. Make sure this person hasn't bounced in any of my sequences so far. Make sure this person hasn't unsubscribed. Just lets me run all those checks again and really be clear that, I'm making sure those things are checked off. Then I do a second thing. I repeat all those same workflows and I run them nightly. And so I use the time-based trigger, replicate the exact same search criteria to check for all those problems. And then every night, in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping, it runs for me and it just makes sure my lists are nice and clean. They don't have any of those problems.
I prefer to imagine you waking up at like 1 a.m. and be like, I got to run my workflow. Clicking the button. Hey, just got your laptop.
Yeah. But
handy.
Reach over and hit.
Yeah. Push the button. That's great. Because, it's never good to run into emailing somebody who's bounced before. I know Apollo is, I don't know, the software I'm assuming does it, but you never know. And so being able to like just be doubly sure of all these things and then have it run nightly, that's really handy.
Yeah, just lets you know it's clean. The other thing I do there that I mentioned earlier, I think, was every day or every week, we check the ICP filters. So again, you can just be sure that those people haven't changed jobs, so they don't have a different title now. They're not the wrong person, or the company hasn't changed somehow. Usually more important at the person level, but you can revalidate all those filters using the same type of workflow.
Oh, that's really handy because Apollo does have and I think it's one of those things they're subtly really good at. That's a really hard problem, which is when somebody changes a job, updating the job title, that is really handy that you can use that as a flag and automatically pull somebody out if they change company per se. Yeah.
And that enrichment tool that's built in definitely does some of those things. What I find that extra helpful about the workflows is I can control what happens next. And so title no longer matches, message rep, ask rep to, jump in. Hey, we want you involved here. Use your best judgment to research the account, find another person, add them to the sequence for plays like that. So you can engage your team a little more directly by using the workflow.
That's really cool. Yeah. Contact out of sequence, or contact is likely to bounce. Let's pull them out. Or contact is likely to be no longer relevant. Let's pull them out is a really fantastic way to keep your reply rates high because you're not emailing people that it's not relevant to, or emailing people that have gone to another company and they're likely to bounce.
Yeah. And sometimes reps might prefer the contacts are added automatically. That's an option, like the replacement contacts, but it also gives you that ability to engage the rep and let them play a role.
One of the hardest things, I think, and we've kind of hinted at this earlier, we talked a little bit about it, but I think after somebody has gone through an initial sequence, or after you've gone through a sales conversation with somebody, to try and stay in touch with them. Maybe a prospect replied to you and they're like, yeah, this is interesting, but we're not ready yet. That's the hardest conversation to keep track of because it's high enough value to warrant a next step, but it just barely crosses that bar. And there's going to be a very large number of them. And so I always found this is where, as an SDR, I would always struggle to stay on top of these ones. I love that you can use some of the things we've talked about to push them into nurture plays. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, maybe we start with what have you set up with James on our team? James is our account exec. For those of you who don't know him, haven't met him, don't work in PR. Tell me what you set up with James around nurtures, and then we can talk about what else we've missed.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a variety of ways that we can meet new leads. They can come inbound to us in some way. We can be going outbound to these people. And then once that first phase of attempting to make contact is done, the question, as Collin saying, is then what? And so what these workflows allow you to do is catch people as they finish sequences. So as contact finishes, outbound sequence 1, then do this thing with them. And so just because workflows was just upgraded, I'm going to have a little bit of the old way and the new way mixed in here. So, new way, from what I can see, I can now just one step this, where when someone finishes a sequence, I want to put them on pause for a bit because I don't want to just keep hammering them. They've just finished the sequence. We didn't go anywhere that time. So let's pause 90 days, make it simple, right? You can pick your own parameters there. Then at the end of 90 days, let's put that contact, back into the top of the messaging if your messaging makes sense for that, and you could do that. Or let's put them into another sequence, which is our re-engagement sequence or our nurture sequence, and then have them run through that. And you can use these workflows to just automate the loop or the cycle of all your leads. So they come in through the top, then they automatically move to nurture, and they can keep moving the different sequences or keep being repeated back through a sequence until you meet someone relevant there.
Very cool. I feel like I could go on with this particular type of podcast forever, but I'm pretty confident we're getting to a good place where we should call it, and we could come back to I think we absolutely should come back to this in a couple months because it seems like Apollo is releasing new features all the time. So we can maybe keep coming back to this and stay updated on what are the new things and what are and how are we using them. I want to end with why do all this work? And I know we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but what's your perspective? Why are you doing all this extra work?
Great question. I've been in this for longer than I'm going to admit right now. And what I've noticed is things cycle. That saying everyone brings up once in a while of, what's old is new, what's new is old. Definitely true in sales. And so what I'm finding right now is that with all these tools being so readily available, everyone being able to do a lot of these things, we're not sending out anymore because everyone's being able to do them. And so taking that extra bit of time to put in the nuances to make your outreach different, feel different, happen in a different pattern, to different people or to more specific people really makes the difference right now. It's driving much higher reply rates, driving, much higher earlier metrics like open rates as well. And it's just getting the job done a little bit easier.
Love it. Jay, thank you so much for coming on the show. I guess the last thing is to tell the people, a little bit about what you do at PR, what you do at Predictable Revenue, and the types of companies you like to work with.
Yeah. So we work with a lot of different companies, actually. We help companies to build these things for themselves inside their shops. And so we work through a coaching and consulting program to do that. We'll work with you, help guide what's happening, build the strategy out, troubleshoot problems, help you build the capabilities up inside your organization. The other way that we work with customers is we can do portions of this done for you. And so we have an outsourced service that's able to take on prospecting work and SDR work, list building work, and help put those things together, ultimately getting you into the market with all the tools and tips we've talked about today.
Love it. Jay, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people are looking to get in touch, whether they want to, ask you a question or hire you as a consultant, what's the best way for them to reach out?
PredictableRevenue.com, contact us, come in, let the team know, and I'll be able to get on a call with you quickly, or you can reach out through LinkedIn if that's easier.
Yeah. I'll throw a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes. And thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll see you all next week.